morning, everyone, and welcome to our regular City Council meeting on the 2nd of June, 2020. It's hard to believe we're in June, but here we are. We have established that we have quorum as every City Council member is present today. So with that, we will move into our prayer for the morning. And we have with us Gary Jenkins, who will lead us, and Marcella Jenkins, who will lead us in prayer this morning. So we could all bow our heads and join them in prayer.
Amen. Good morning, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm happy to be here again with you, and let's pray. Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come before your presence one more time, to seek your face and your counsel. Your word says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And so, Father, we bow before you in recognition of that. And Father, right now, our nation is going through a turmoil of protesting and violence in the wake of the death of George Floyd. And Father, we ask you in Jesus' name, Lord, first surround that family and Lord, heal our nation. Father, deliver us from violence and from all manner of ungodliness. I pray for the City Council here in San Angelo that you guide them and lead them to do and conduct the business of the city in a way that will glorify you and be a blessing to all of the residents and those who work in this city. Father, we thank you for the leadership of this city. We thank you for our department heads, and we thank you for our city manager and our city attorney and the mayor and all of those that are in governmental leadership. But Father, we ask you, help us in San Angelo to be a shining example to the rest of the nation and the world on how to handle crises like this. We ask you in Jesus' name, touch each and every one of us to be a light into this dark world. We ask this in Jesus' name and for your name's sake. Amen and amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Gary and Marcella.
God bless you, Mayor.
With that, we will move into public comment. And I have several comments that I would like to make this morning. So I will start with the following. As mayor, I want to acknowledge and at the same time thank those who participated in the peaceful protest that was held on Sunday. We cannot accept what happened to George Floyd and others before him as okay. We must believe strongly in the First Amendment, which allows for our freedom of speech, but we must also believe in the law. We must stand up to the wrongs that led to George Floyd's and others' death. Their deaths are not okay. We must be proactive as a city. We must show unity, solidarity in our approach to all citizens. I believe Chief Frank Carter and his assistant police chiefs and other officers are leading a force that would never allow for behavior unbecoming to a fellow citizen, regardless of their race. We must demonstrate, not in occasional protests, but in our day-to-day management, that we live in a city that will not accept that aggressive level of behavior towards anyone, regardless of their race, their sex, or their age. We cannot tolerate unreasonable force towards anyone. We must respect every single person's rights. I want to make sure we never have a situation that leads to extreme looting, property damage, and persons being hurt in protest of a person's unacceptable behavior that led to the death of a human being. We must accept that even in our community, racism exists. But we also must use our individual voices to make sure that we speak up and speak out about unlikely behavior towards individuals. And we may do this by getting to better know on a personal level each of our officers. They have districts and they have areas and they have presence in our neighborhoods. The closer our relationships are with our police force, the more we can be assured that all persons have the same rights. But also realizing we must be law-abiding citizens. Tonight at 7 p.m., we will be holding a prayer vigil at the police station. We invite the community to join us as we unite to pray for our community and all communities who have been impacted by the death of George Floyd and others, and have tolerated in other cities that have had to tolerate riots and loss of property and businesses as a reaction to this unacceptable death. Let tonight just be the beginning of addressing in every aspect the fair treatment of every citizen. We have to acknowledge racism exists in our community, but we all must take personal responsibility and use our voices to ensure that all citizens feel they are treated fairly in this community. Thank you. My next public comment is the following as it relates to our cable providers in this city. Over the past year, I have received, as well as many of our city council members have received, complaints about the service and quality we are receiving from our primary cable providers. I want to make clear that the city does not pick or choose who the cable providers are in this city. Cable providers are private or publicly traded companies who choose to offer cable and other services to the citizens of this city. The city only receives franchise fees for the use of the city's right-of-way. That being said, as a community, we must have a cable provider that supports the needs of this community. Over the past few weeks, as we have had to do more meetings on internet, and as our school students have needed to have access to cable, the need for a reliable provider has become even more important. We cannot have strong economic growth if we don't have reliable connectivity. I'm asking for you, the citizens, to please send us letters about your quality or unreliability and lack of customer service. Please send those letters to the attention of Michael Dane at 72 West College Avenue, San Angelo, Texas, 75903. We will collect all these letters and send them to our representatives as well as the FCC. We, the city of San Angelo and its citizens, deserve better cable providers, and I am willing to fight hard to get quality, reliability, and better customer service. The next thing I want to talk about is, I know we've had several citizens who have commented on perhaps the need to reduce the number of employees at City Hall. And I want to make sure that all citizens understand the following. We are not looking to make huge cuts and just start eliminating people from the city and staff. But what we will be doing is looking at those who retire, perhaps not refilling their position, not putting, and as well as not filling current job openings. Governor Abbott last week announced to all of his agencies that they must reduce their areas by 5%. And that means that we all have to take a look at our budgets. And I know that today, our city manager, Daniel Valenzuela, has aggressively looked at all the areas where we can reduce cost expenses, as well as the number of employees, as long as not addressing those employee issues hurts our services provided to our citizens. So we are not looking to fire people unless their performance would lead to that, but we are looking to be as cost efficient as we possibly can, as we know that our citizens deserve great services, but they also need to know that we do not want to have to raise our property tax rate. That would not be wise on our part. So what we do have to do is to take a look at every possible potential saving that we can make. but we are not looking to do a random start to fire people. This is not our approach. Daniel?
Mayor, I'd like to add as well that, and I said this last meeting that we had, the city has been in the black every year. That is our goal, to make sure that we do provide efficient services. Thank you for that, Mayor, as well. But we won't be in the black. Even this year, I can tell you this right now, that my staff and myself, we're all working on ensuring that those expenditures are cut back to match or even surpass what we have in the drop in revenues. We'll be doing the same next year to make sure that we do budget in a very fiscally responsible manner to ensure that those expenditures are at or below what we expect for revenues to come in. But we do want to make sure that we do it responsibly, and we want to make sure that we do continue providing the services that we currently provide, and that those services really don't drop off. But I can tell you right now that with a hiring freeze at this point, we do anticipate that quite a few jobs will actually go away for this fall and next year. And we'll be actually timing and looking at how next year actually does revenue-wise to determine if some of those positions actually can come back. But right now, thank you for that comment, Mayor. And we do want to do it very responsibly. And I can assure our citizens that we will be in the black at the end of this fiscal year and next fiscal year as well.
Thank you. My last public comment today is about our COVID-19 situation. COVID-19 is still in this community. The number of cases continues to rise, and in fact, we've had more positive cases over the past few days than we have experienced earlier. Over the past 2 days, we have announced 10 new cases. So COVID-19 has not gone away. We are experiencing more community spread, which creates the numbers rising. With 10 new cases over the past few days, we must remember to continue to practice social responsibility, social distancing, and social discipline. We need to wear masks. We must wash our hands frequently. Congregating is not acceptable. And I worry, as of yesterday, we've opened up many of our parks, camping areas, and I don't want to find that because of that relaxing, that we end up with congregating at a continually growing number of COVID-19 cases. It truly is up to each of us to take personal responsibility for our behavior, for our actions, and for our commitment to ensure the health and safety of all of the citizens in this city. Thank you. We will now move into the consent agenda. May I ask each city council member if there's anything from the consent agenda that you would like to pull?
Nothing to pull.
I have nothing,
And Tom
Mayor.
Thompson said nothing to pull. Tommy as well has said that, so I'm assuming, Tom Thompson, you're making a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Absolutely.
All right, and Tommy, I'm assuming you're seconding that?
Second.
Okay, with the motion and a second, and with no public comment, we will take a vote to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, the consent agenda has been approved. We will move into the regular agenda. The first item is item A, consider approving a draft budget for the hotel occupancy tax fund. And Tina, you're presenting today.
Yes, ma'am. Get my slides up here for you. Okay, so we're talking about the hotel tax budget. I am asking for action as far as approving a draft so that we can bring that back with our final budget in September. So what we're proposing here is for our two largest partners, Civic Events and CVB. We're kind of proposing their format in the same way. And so with the Civic Events Fund, they're projecting a savings in the current year that they could cut expenditures of about $55,000. So we'd ask that they could carry that over into next year and use that savings to offset expenses in FY 2021 to decrease the amount of hotel tax that we would need to transfer to them. So they are proposing to cut revenue next year by $183,000. $100,000 of that would be from projected decreases to their revenues other than hotel tax, which includes their venue revenues, concessions, interest, leases, those types of things. That is a 20% reduction to their regular other revenue budget. And then in addition, we would propose an $82,000 decrease from hotel tax revenue. So to show you what that looks like on paper, this is what you see every year in our budget workshops. Again, that decreased hotel tax of $82,000, a decrease in the facility use fee, which, as you recall, is a restricted revenue source of $18,000, and then a decrease in other revenues of $82,000, for a total decrease to their revenue budget of $183,000. And then showing that projected use of savings of $55,000, they have an available amount available for their expenditure budget of $128,000. So they cut their personnel budget by almost $11,000, and then operations and maintenance by $99,000, for a total cut to their expenditure budget of $109,000. And then, of course, again, that restricted revenue source, the decrease of 18.5. With that, if we don't have any questions on that slide, we'll move on to the next, which is the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They are projecting savings from the current year of $200,000. Again, we would ask that they be able to carry that over and use it to offset expenses in 2021. And they are cutting their revenue next year by $246,000, almost $247,000. And to show you that on our table, again, the cut to hotel tax of $247,000, the use of projected savings of $200,000, with a total decrease to their expenditure budget of almost $47,000 for next year. So this slide you saw last time, again, it's just our projection of what we're expecting for the current year, which is a 50% year-over-year reduction for the remaining months of the year. And I will say for May that we actually did a little better than that. We had a 43% decrease from the previous year for May. And I will point out that May was our biggest month last year for hotel tax. And so that's, I think we're being conservative in how we're projecting this, in that we actually came in a little better than what we had projected. So with that, we would have a 9.5% decrease for the current year over the previous year. And then again, for next year, we're projecting that 38% year-over-year reduction for October through March, 25% for April through September, for a total decrease of 20% and a total revenue of just over $1.8 million. This is how our HOP fund has been distributed for FY 2020 and for FY 2021. You'll notice that there is a new partner down here at the bottom. Oops, pardon me. And that is by request. And I believe that request was made last year to Daniel during the budget process, but we were too far along in the budget process last year to consider it. And so we thought it was important to bring it up for consideration in the current or the next year budget. So with that, this is how our hotel occupancy tax looks for the current year compared with what we're projecting for next year. We would still have a shortage next year of $114,000. And again, if we were to consider the San Angelo Museum of Fine Arts an additional $50,000, that would of course be an additional $50,000 to that $164,000. So what does that do to our fund balance for FY20? We already have current obligations in place so that we are going to have to make those transfers out of the fund regardless of where hotel tax ends up. And so we are projecting currently a decrease in fund balance of almost $380,000. And again, as I said, for next year, even though we cut expenditures everywhere we possibly could, we're still projecting a little bit of a shortfall of just over $100,000. Again, that does leave our fund balance in a place where it needs to be. Our goal is $469,000 in fund balance for that 75 days worth of operating expenditures. Leaves us $651,000, which still leaves us some cushion. I think it's important to point out that the reason we have a fund balance built up is for a rainy day period like this. And so that we have something there to draw on in the case that we need to. And with that, Mayor, I just have some options for addressing the shortfall, and I'm open to any questions or discussion.
Do I have any questions from council?
Harry Thomas, single member District 3. I think I have a question. We're shortfall for fiscal year 20 and projected shortfall for fiscal year 21. I'm just wondering whether or not this is the time to take on a new partner for hot tax. I think the museum does a great job, don't get me wrong, and I believe they probably bring people in and put heads in beds. But I mean, as we're looking at shortfalls here, I'm just wondering whether this is the appropriate time to do this.
Mayor, this is Lane Carter, District 5. I'm going to agree with Harry. As much as I love the museum and Howard Taylor and everything that they do, I think this is the wrong time to take on a partner to where we're going to be expending more with a shortfall at this point. Maybe if we look at, I know they offered it last year to become a partner, but maybe we just see what we look like at the end of the year and maybe include it or do a budget amendment for the end of this year. Also, Tina, do we have any projections on if we stay this course, what our hot funds will go through another 6 months with lower rates?
Yeah, I think she presented that earlier. Tina, you want to go back and review those numbers because you had a projection for the balance of the year for 20 budget, and you also had a projection for the 2021 budget. So you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was thinking that was up to date.
No,
I
it's
see
okay.
that now. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Good
Sorry
deal.
about that. And I think the point was the following, that we've projected conservatively for the balance of the fiscal year 20. Our past month has performed better than we expected. And I think in my perspective, one of the greatest things that we can do is to create a reason for people to come to San Angelo and stay in the hotels. Because if we don't get aggressive about promoting some of our assets, hotel rooms will stay empty. So the whole idea behind the proposal from the museum is they bring in the largest amount of out-of-towners to this city, whether it's for the On Air event, which brings tremendous amount of people here from other states, whether it's the ceramic exhibition and contest, tremendous amount of out-of-towner people come for it. So in my perspective, what we want to do is to fund those organizations who have the most positive ability to impact hotel rooms. Because if we do nothing, we can be assured that the hotel rooms will remain empty. Hot tax money increases and grows when people stay in our hotels. So for me, it's about looking at those areas where we know that there's a positive impact in hotel occupancy and making sure that they have the revenue to promote and to bring into this city people who will spend money and help increase sales tax revenue and hot tax money. And I believe strongly that the museum does that. If it had a negative impact on our fund balance and we were showing some negativity to our objective of 75-day fund balance, then I would say it would not be reasonable to consider it. But I think it is reasonable to consider it because we need reasons for people to come to the city of San Angelo and stay in our hotels.
I'll definitely agree that it's reasonable to consider it. Another question I have is, what was the funding level that they received from SACAC?
I think it would be appropriate to let Howard speak at this point in time. The SACAC grants are very specific in terms of funding a particular program, so it's program funding. But Howard, you need, please allow Howard to speak.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We
Good
can,
morning.
Hi. You say you can hear me?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Hear
Thank
us?
you. I don't know if you can see me or not, but that's okay if you can't see me. Believe me, I'm happy to
We
be
can
here.
see you.
Well, you know, I want to, say that I initially came to this idea reluctantly. I don't know why, but I've been urged for many years by board members, members of city council, community leaders to make this appeal. And there's, I think, a good rationale behind it. And I think, Harry, when I heard your comment, for example, and I know you know the museum and are a terrific supporter, but when you said probably bring people to the community, I think one of the challenges, the way we're funded currently, is our story just does not get out there. It's hidden. You don't really get the data, the information. And so to some extent, we have felt that we would really like to be able to present before city council exactly what we do and how we impact the community, because I think it's important to know that, because when you look at the hot funds, the purpose behind them is the economic well-being of our community. When that law was created, yes, it was essentially about heads and beds. The more people that came to a community, the more they spent. The hotels benefited and the city itself benefited overall, both the businesses and city government through taxes received and so forth. And so that is at the core of what hot funding is about. And over the years, yes, we've gotten good support, sometimes very, very disappointed and couldn't even understand why our funding was at the level it was. Last year, I think we hit about 30. I can't recall. I know it was down a bit from previous year. But the other thing is, when you look across the state and in other communities in other states where they have similar funding, almost always the museums and major conserving institutions are separate and either get funding directly through their communities or some other agency. Last year, I was a keynote speaker in Midland at the annual event of the Celts of Harris Council there. And the museum was notably absent. And I asked about that, and they said, well, that is because they receive their funding through the city directly, and it's at a much higher level. And there's a rationale behind that. And I just want to give you a couple of key points of data. First of all, the hot funding is the reason for the money that's distributed. And the first thing is, how many heads and beds? Well, the museum can't put a precise, exact number, but it's close to 4,000 heads and beds annually. No one comes close to that. And imagine if that were a convention of 400 people, that's like 10 conventions a year. We spend over $25,000 a year. I have a whole stack of publications here that are national, that we get out across America. And that is a very significant driver of bringing people to our community. This evening at 6:30, we'll be doing a national program. It'll be on YouTube. KLST is helping distribute it. Thousands of people across America will be watching that as we announce the very famous artist, over 30 of them, that'll be coming to San Angelo this fall. So that kind of thing is ongoing. And another thing is, when people come to a community, whether they come directly for an activity in the arts, or they're just passing through the community, or they're here on business, it's the availability of programming. Well, the museum has 4,000 hours of programs that we do a year. We're essentially open 7 days a week, even though our galleries are only open 6 days a week. Even on the day, the Monday that we're closed, we invariably have activities going on here. And so people who come to this community, they have a great variety of choices. They can come during the day, and we have numerous activities in the evening that go on. So they have multiple opportunities that, and this is not to be unfair to the other organizations, but it's simply not available. 4,000 hours is almost 10 times the number of hours of all the other programming that occurs in the arts, and that's significant. And so that's a part of our case, only a small part of our case of why we think this is important. There's another aspect too called community service. And although that's not the primary driver of the HOT funding, it has a great deal to do with how it impacts the community overall, how we attract businesses, people who want to live here and stay here. And I want to make a point right at the very beginning. Our organization is the most culturally diverse. We are very, very engaged with this community. We are the only arts organization, community-based arts organization, that's ever had an African-American board president, that has had very strong representation from all the communities, 3 Hispanic board presidents. You just simply don't find that elsewhere. And you find that also in our staffing and in our volunteers and in our exhibitions. We continuously do exhibitions that engage the community, including minority communities. And so that's a very fundamental thing. And then the other thing is, no other organization can even touch us in this regard. And that is that we have almost 100 different community groups that meet at the museum annually, free, without cost. And that has even included city council on occasion, the National Spelling Bee, multiple things that go on, Goodfellow events, done without charge. And so when I kind of cap this off, and I do have to mention too, our education program is unparalleled in America. It's the only program of its kind that's received the National Museum Service Award in a ceremony at the White House. Not a perfunctory ceremony. We were there for a half a day and it was a major celebration. And these are things that are not recognized. We don't have our opportunity to come before City Council and really make this case. And also we welcome open dialogue and criticism and input about how we engage the community. And in this time of challenge, the kind of things that are occurring, the community is so fundamental to this museum. And the final thing I'll say is that in the end, the choices you make really have to be about making a better community, a better world, but also economics is at the core of it. And we do spend this enormous amount of money on marketing. We are an ambassador to our community. By the way, we have a major exhibition. No other museum in the world has ever had this at the European Ambassador's official residence in Washington, D.C., representing San Angelo, Texas, unparalleled. And we hear continuously from people around the country and around the world about that. We hire people. We have 7 full-time and 7 full-time equivalents. That's 14 people working at the museum on a daily basis, plus over 40 part-time people at the museum. And finally, I want to say our budget is substantial. It's over $1,700,000 this year. And where does that money come from? Well, I'll tell you what, it doesn't come from most of the people in this community. And I'll tell you why it does not, because we know the data, the per capita income in this community. So almost everything that we do is free, and we are very committed to that. So we have to work nonstop all through this period. I've been working literally 7 days a week and into the evening, generating funding and resources from around the country, coming into this community and being spent here. And none of this story has ever gotten out in the way that it should. And so there's been a kind of false equivalency. We strongly support all the arts organizations in this community. And I don't like to talk about this at a personal level, but with the recent San Angelo Gives, I made 21 gifts to different organizations personally. My own board did the same thing, supporting other organizations. So we're not against anybody. In fact, I think the arts that we have in this community are extraordinary, but we do need to have something that is more appropriate in the way of we get support for the museum, or frankly, we suffer for the lack of that funding. And this is not the hugest part of our budget, but it really makes a significant difference. And so I appreciate this opportunity. Have tons of data and all kinds of support material, and can show you the awards we receive, the marketing that we do, and show you where our money comes from and how it impacts the community. And so I do thank you for considering this and giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Do I have any other comments from council? With none, are we needing a motion today to accept the draft budget, Tina?
Yes, ma'am. With that, we would be bringing this back to you one final time when we adopt the annual budget.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the draft budget as presented by Tina?
Mayor, may I clarify whether we are going to include the Museum of Fine Arts in that budget or not?
That would be a part of the motion.
Okay, thank you.
And we can just keep in mind, this is all just draft. So it can come back. If it looks like we're trending lower, we can amend it closer to budget time.
Absolutely. We'll be watching it very closely, Elaine.
Do I have a motion to approve the draft budget as presented, including the $50,000 for the Museum of Fine Arts?
Mayor Tommy Hebert, single member District 1. I'll make a motion to approve the draft budget to include the $50,000 for Museum of Fine Arts.
Thank you, Tommy. Do I have a second? Yes, Lucy is seconding that motion. We will take a vote. All in favor of approving the draft budget for the hotel occupancy tax for our fiscal budget 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Is there, okay, Tommy is a yay. Tom Thompson,
Yay.
a yay. Harry,
Yay.
Lucy,
Yay.
Billy,
Yay.
Lane, yay, and Brenda Gunter, a yay. So the draft budget is passed 7-0, including the $50,000 for the Museum of Fine Arts. Oh, sorry, I need to back up 1 minute. I did not offer, I did not read the one public comment that we got, so let me do that now. My apologies for that, sorry. My name is Steve Mahaffey, and I come to you as a taxpayer of the city of San Angelo. I would like to take a second to thank the city council as well as city staff for your work during this time of economic uncertainty. Tough decisions will have to be made still to be able to provide the best services possible to our citizens, and we thank you for that. I am specifically commenting today on the agenda item 6A regarding the proposed hot budget. With the forecasted revenue being down this fiscal year, unfortunately, cuts will have to be made. The proposed budget does in fact show cuts for SACAC, CBB, and civic events. Again, I know that tough times require tough decisions to be made. So my main question is if we are requiring some organizations to cut as well as your own internal department that maintains and operates venues that many taxpayers utilize, why are you then adding expenses on the other side? For example, you're cutting civic events hot transfer by roughly $82,000, but then turning around and offering $50,000 to another organization. I am in no way saying any organization isn't worthy of receiving hot funds. I just don't understand the rationale behind cutting some and then awarding others. In times like this, it would make more financial sense if you have the $50,000 to spare to give that $50,000 back to the areas you're cutting and look at awarding a new organization in better times. Also, in times like this, I don't understand the rationale behind singling out an organization that already receives hot funding for SACAC. The main intent several years ago was to allocate funds to SACAC and let them be the gatekeeper of those funds and allocate to other smaller groups. This takes the burden off of city staff and council to monitor several entities and not open a can of worms. They have a great application process that determines the recipients meets the items required by the tax code. Again, I'm in no way questioning the cuts. I am questioning the added expenses in times like this. I do thank you for your time and appreciate the work you guys will put into this year's budget process. Thanks again, Steve Mahaffey. Thank you, Steve, for that comment and the time it took to put this together and send it to us. It's greatly appreciated. With that, we will move on to item B, which is consider resolution allowing the fire department to accept donations for the purchase of aerial apparatus and equipment, which again is the fire truck with a ladder that we discussed at the last city council meeting and gave the authority for the city for Brian Dunn to proceed with the purchasing of that fire truck with ladder. So with that, do we have the resolution? It says consider resolution. So what we are doing is the following, and I have Mr. John Cross available for us today as well. And let me just read the following. Lone Star Beef and its 760 employees, managers, and cleanup crew are pleased to be able to assist in the purchase of the new laddered fire truck for the San Angelo Fire Department, which in turn helps all the first responders who protect our city by keeping the vehicle purchase funds from being depleted. We are thankful for all our first responders, as well as all the nurses and doctors who put their lives on the line every day. God has blessed Lone Star and its employees with no exposure in this crazy time and the ability to run at full capacity, which keeps all our employees fully employed and lets us continue to supply the nation with beef in a very critical time. San Angelo has been blessed with very low exposure, and that blessing has protected 99.9% of our community. May we all be thankful for what we have and what we have received. And the management employees of Lone Star Beef. So John, would you like to say a few words, please?
Well, I think that's probably what I had to say. We've been blessed, and we wanted to bless the city, knowing that their tax revenues will be, say, difficult over the next period. And again, it's a thankfulness to all of our first responders, so that they all have the available equipment that they need to take care of our community and take care of our company out here, take care of all of our employees, but take care of everybody. And so we're just pretty thankful, and just wanted to pass it along.
Thank you, John. Brian, would you like to offer any comment?
Morning, Mayor, Council, Fire Chief Brian Dunn. On behalf of the San Angelo Fire Department and the City of San Angelo, I'd certainly like to thank Lone Star Beef and their employees for the substantial donation that they made to the purchase of this piece of aerial apparatus equipment. This piece of equipment is an integral part of stuff for us to protect the citizens of San Angelo. So with that, I would recommend accepting that donation.
What I would like to also offer, if it is fine with you, Mr. Cross, is when we know the approximate arrival date of this new truck, we would like to organize an event at the fire station, one of them, with accepting this truck, and do a big, if you will, ribbon cutting, accepting the new truck. So we will intend to do an event where citizens and other people may attend the event. And thank you for this incredible donation, and look forward to the arrival of the truck. Billy, I think you wanted to say some words, please.
I would. I just wanted to say, Mayor, during this incredibly difficult time in a lot of different areas, for Mr. Cross to see a need within the city of San Angelo, and then to work to meet that need because God has blessed his company, his employees, I think is incredible. And I know he's not looking for a lot of recognition or special accolades, but I do want to extend my personal thanks again to him. I spoke with him last week, but I just want to say to you, Mr. Cross, thank you so much for giving back. We heard Mr. Taylor say earlier about San Angelo Gives, and certainly with all that's going on, we had bigger donations than we did last year for San Angelo Gives. But this instance of Mr. Cross recognizing that we were going to have some budget shortfalls, and him and his employees reaching out to the city of San Angelo to ensure that we have good, sound, as new as we can equipment to protect all of the citizens of San Angelo. I just think it's worth mentioning. And I say thanks on behalf of myself and the members of District 6, in which Mr. Cross lives, and Lone Star Beef employees who probably live all over the city. We thank you. And we thank God that we have citizens in San Angelo who see a need and reach out to meet that need. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Billy. With that, do I need a motion to accept the resolution as presented and the donation?
Mayor, this is Lane Carter. I'll make a motion, and I also want to say thank you, Mr. Cross, for everything that you do for our community as an employer and a citizen, and just the heart that you have to be able to do this. I appreciate that, and I know the citizens appreciate it also.
Billy DeWitt, Single Member District 6, seconding the motion.
Thank you very much. And with no public comment, I've read it already, so I'm a little either behind or ahead on my reading the public comments. So my apologies for the input when I'm offering it. So with that, we will take a vote. All in favor of receiving the incredible donation from Mr. John Cross, Lone Star Beef, and the resolution allowing us to do that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, that motion passes 7-0. And thank you again, Mr. Cross. We will be back in touch with you for a more public event to acknowledge you, your company, and your incredible gift to the fire department. So thank you.
God bless you, Mr. Cross. We appreciate you.
But have a good day.
Thank you. All right, we will move into item C, which is second reading of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020 for grants and capital items. And Tina, you're on.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble finding my slides. Kimberly is going to share the slides for me because for some reason they're not showing up on my screen here. Mayor, this is the second reading, as you said, of the budget amendment that we brought to you for the last meeting. The reason that it is on regular rather than consent as it usually would be because we had a couple of slight changes. The first amendment is for the health department to receive CARES funding in the amount of just over $250,000. And that has not changed. That remains the same.
Is someone moving the slides forward?
There we go. So again, this is receiving CARES funding for the health department in the amount of $250,000. That amount has not changed from the last meeting. The next slide is for the bond issue for street improvements in the amount of $17.7 million. That has also not changed. The next slide is for the Lake Nasworthy improvements. The amounts here remain the same as at the last meeting. However, I do want to point out that we have made the decision to account for the Lake Nasworthy improvements portion of the $6 million in a separate fund on its own so that we can be more transparent and readily see what monies are coming out of that allocation. And the other change, of course, is that on the previous budget amendment, we had a request for $250,000 to borrow from next year's budget for the fire truck. But as you know, we no longer need that. And so it has been removed from the amendment.
Okay. Do I have questions from council on Tina's presentation for these budget amendments for grants and capital items? Okay, with none, I will ask for a motion to approve the second reading, amending the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019 and ending September 30, 2020. Do I have that motion?
Harry Thomas,
DeWitt,
I'll make the motion.
Gary Thomas made a motion. Can I have a second from?
Billy DeWitt, Single Member District 6, second.
Thank you. No public comment. We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. We will now move into item D, consider awarding PK-01-20 Middle Concho Park improvements for Future Best of San Angelo, Texas, in the amount of $970,000 budgeted for purchase in fiscal year 2020, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents contingent on approval of funding sources. So, Al, are you here? Can
Yes,
you hear
ma'am.
us? Okay,
I'm here.
you're on.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, council members and Mr. Valenzuela. Let me set up my screen here. right, can everybody still hear me?
We can.
As the mayor said, this is to award a bid for a new ramp and amenities over at Middle Concho Park. And this is a list of basically what we're doing. We have an existing boat ramp there that's about 30 feet wide. We would be doubling it with new 60-foot wide new ramp with new expanded parking. We're going to replace the existing restrooms with new restrooms that include showers, which is an amenity for the campers as well. And we're going to have a new lift station and approximately 1,600 feet of a new sewer line. The existing bathroom is on a septic system, but we're going to run a new sewer line over to FB Road, which is the closest location. And this will include a new boat dock. This is the where the Middle Concho Park is located, for anybody who's not familiar with it. And this is a site plan of the amenities. You can see the new boat ramp down here. There's an existing boat dock on one side. We're going to add another one on the other, including handicap parking and parking for trucks with their boat docks, a way for them to circle around and back in. This is the new bathroom here and new parking for the bathroom, as well as accessible route from the ramps up to the bathroom. The total project budget is $1,024,000. We have received a grant from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department of $499,500. We previously had matching funds of $166,500. So our additional funding that we are needing is $358,000. We have two options. Option one is to use $358,000 from the Lake Nasworthy funds allocated to lake improvements. We met with the homeowners association to get their buy-in and make sure they're okay with us using those funds. As you know, part of those funds were earmarked for lake improvements, including boat ramps. So we feel like this falls within the scope of what those funds are supposed to be used for anyway. Our option two is to use $228,000 from the Lake Nasworthy funds and $130,000 from Fund 103 balance. So basically, either one of those situations would get us to where we need to be. That's all that I have. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
My first question, Al, is the following. I know that this project came in over $300,000 higher than originally expected. So can you talk to us about why we thought we could get a project for the $600,000 range and it's over $1 million project?
Yes, ma'am. A couple of reasons that I can think of. Number one is that the estimate was an older estimate. This project has been ongoing since 2012. And I think the last time that estimate was updated was 2 years ago. Carl can probably speak a little more to that. That was done by staff. So that's part of it. The other part is just the market today. As you know, you're always talking about the shortage of trades and so all the contractors right now, prices are going up. They're all busy right now. So part of it is just the market as well.
Well, but I'm talking to a lot of people in the business of development, and what they're saying right now is labor's cheaper, commodities are cheaper because of what's happened in the oil field and the economy. So most people that I talk to talk about build and do now because prices are better than they've been from both, and also more available labor today than there was before when the oil industry was going strong. So I'm a little confused by that, that the market would reflect higher commodities. I understand lumber is much cheaper than it was 60 days ago, et cetera. So on the other hand, I very much support doing this project and would be silly not to accept an almost $500,000 grant as a part of this. I also understand that I guess the cost estimates were some time ago, which I guess we should make sure that we keep those cost estimates more current than they are, so we have a more realistic approach to what these projects might cost us.
Yes, ma'am, I agree 100%. But and the the cost of doing work, cost of construction, you're right. I've heard the same thing here recently because of the oil and everything. Some of that's starting to drop. But I'm talking about over the last 2 years, the prices have gone up quite a bit now from they were 2 years ago. So that's part of it. And the other part, like you said, is just the estimate itself was older. And I think the estimate itself was just missed it to an extent. But like you said, we don't want to lose this project. We have $500,000, almost $500,000 in grant money that if we don't make this happen, that's going to hurt our chances for future grants. But we definitely want to make this one happen and then use that money to leverage future grants.
I would totally agree, and I'm sure Mr. Hebert would as well. So Tommy, you want to comment, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. I think some things I'm hearing, I don't want to contradict you or Al, either one, but I'm not sure we have seen the drop yet in prices that we likely will see. So I'm not sure we've had that significant decrease in the costs for things related to construction that we likely might see in the next 180 days or so. So I'm not sure that that's entirely accurate. Also, this is something I think we need to consider seriously. But Mayor, you alluded to it, Mr. Torres alluded to it, that we don't want to hurt our chances for future funding, specifically for boat docks with Texas Parks and Wildlife, by not, accepting this grant that they're making available to us. So having said that, Mayor, I would make the motion that we accept option 2 for additional funding, $228,000 from Lake Nasworthy funds and $130,000 from Fund Balance 103.
Lucy, before I accept that motion, Tommy, Lucy wanted to make some comments, so let me allow her to make a comment, and then I'll come back to you for that motion.
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to ask the question, what's the 103 fund balance?
Carl, are you on that? That's
I can speak to that.
Okay, Tina.
The Fund 103 is where we track all of our intergovernmental funds, which are all grant related.
Okay.
Balance builds up in there. We almost always try to use it for leveraging new grants for match.
Mayor, if I can ask something else.
Yes, please.
The $130,000 from Fund 103, that budget amendment is already in the process, but it requires 2 readings. This grant, however, has a deadline on it. So we want to get this project started as soon as we can. So what we would like to do is go ahead and award the $358,000 from the Lake Nasworthy Fund. And then as soon as that fund balance goes through its second reading, we'll replace that $130,000 back into that account.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Tommy, are you good with that?
Yes, ma'am. That sounds fine. Just to get the project moving. No, that sounds fine. As long as we keep the Lake Nasworthy funds as large as possible for other projects.
Okay, so Tommy has made a motion to 2 things. One, ultimately it'll be option 2, but what we will be doing is using option 1 for immediate use, having the funds, and then we will replenish the $130,000 from the fund balance as that second reading happens. But we want to move forward and approve the 358 so that we can accept this grant as well as start the project moving forward. So that would be the motion. And then I would need a second.
Second.
And a second by Lucy. With no public comment, we'll take a vote. So all in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed, so that motion would pass 7-0.
Thank you, Council.
All right, we'll move into item E. First public hearing and introduction of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020 for capital projects and donations. And Tina, you're on for this one as well.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The first budget amendment on this round is for that Middle Concho boat ramp that you just approved in the amount of $130,000 from Fund 103's fund balance. The second amendment is for $109,000 from TCEQ for some repairs that are being made at the state office building. So they are reimbursing for those expenses. Third is the revenue and expense for the West Texas Water Partnership. That $318,000 gets us through the end of the calendar year. And of course, as you know, it will be reimbursed by the Development Corporation to the Water Capital Fund. And finally, budgeting for that revenue and expense associated with the donation that was made earlier in the meeting. This amount will be accounted for in our restricted fund, Fund 601, and it will only be allowed to be used for the purchase of the fire truck.
All right, do I have questions for Tina from any council member? With none, do I have a motion to approve this ordinance amending the budget?
Harry Thomas, single member, District 3. I move to approve the budget as presented.
I'll
Do
second.
I have a second?
Lane Carter, I'll second.
Lane is seconding the motion with no public comment. We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 None opposed, motion passes 7-0. The next item is item F, consider approving budgeted funds for the Texas Bank Sports Complex to be used to incentivize sports tournaments for the complex. Brent, you're on.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. So there are some funds available for sports tournaments that were to be used by recreation. The reason that we have not been able to use those funds is every time that we would try to plan out a tournament with some incentive packages that were the funds were going to be used for, another tournament would pop up somewhere else and a lot of teams would disappear to that. So we would lose some of our teams that were going to come here. So we have not used any of the money that's in that account as of yet. We're requesting to use these funds as a direct payment to bring in sports tournaments held by other organizations. This is the reason we're here today. So
Describe
it was
what
brought.
that means. Brent, tell us what that means. It says to use these funds for a direct payment to bring in sports tournaments. Talk to me about what that is.
Okay, so an organization such as the one that we're talking about today, which is USSSA, they go to different cities and hold different tournaments. They've been here numerous of times. They go to many other cities as well. So when they do that, they normally request from the city a certain amount of funds, depending on how many teams they bring in. And we have a breakdown of how that would work with us, which I'll be happy to talk about. But in that, like for the February tournament of this year, we provide, the city of San Angelo provided them $8,000 to bring that tournament here. And that had 122 teams registered, but 117 teams actually showed up to play that weekend. So that's what we're asking for, is to be able to provide them money to bring a tournament here, which is what they always request. It's a common practice to bring in tournaments such as that. And we're hoping that it would be a large tournament. They're looking at coming here July 11th and 12th, and that's what we're discussing with them. But currently, they did move on their webpage. They did move it to San Angelo for July 11th and 12th. And as of right before the meeting, we checked it out, and there were already 30 teams registered for that, and they just changed it to San Angelo on Sunday. So we're requesting to be able to use these funds in the complex account to pay them directly to bring in this tournament. And then we're also requesting to be able to make any money that we make from that tournament to us, which normally we do a partnership with USSSA when they bring in youth baseball tournaments because they are so large. So what we were able to put into our account from the February tournament was $12,493. That's what the city of San Angelo brought in, and the CVB paid them $8,000 to come here. And then of course the economic impact was $673,000 for that tournament with 117 teams. So it would be a great thing. And we're just asking to be able to use that money and then keep what we do make off of that tournament for future tournaments as well.
Okay. Do I have comments or questions from council? I certainly support being able to bring and utilize the Texas Bank Sports Complex for tournaments. We need people in hotel rooms. We need money spent in this community. And I would think spending money to bring them into this city would be a positive. May I have any questions? Tommy, go ahead.
Mayor, I was just going to make a motion to approve the budgeted funds to be used as incentives for the sports tournaments for the complex.
Okay, thank you.
I'll
And
second.
A second by Lane. And with that and no public comment, we will take a vote. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Approved 7-0. With that, that concludes our regular agenda for the city council meeting. Again, I want to apologize to everyone for my reading of public comments, perhaps at the wrong time frame, but I know that every one of the city council members had copies of those public comments prior to this meeting, so it was not that they didn't have it to review, think through, and decide what to do. So with that, we are going to move into our closed session. The executive session under the provision of Government Code Title 5, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to Requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding A, the Ford Ranch, and 2, the West Texas Water Partnership. With that, we will move into executive session. And I think you all have the information on how to come out of this to get everybody into the next grouping of what we do. And here's the deal, we need people in hotel rooms. That's the way you improve the hot fund balance. And he talked to me. But it doesn't make sense, first of all, and I don't want to do that, but it will reduce my psych acts. And museum is still part of that. All the other organizations will get fewer dollars. I just. And it doesn't impact our fund balance. And it has the potential to fill up our hotel rooms. It's what we found out. We're still at Billy, is she on? Do you have your camera on? We see everybody else's face but yours. I don't know if you can hear me, Billy, but we don't see your face.
I can hear you, but for whatever reason, when I click on start video, it's not starting.
Well, at least we know you're tuned in, so we can go ahead and proceed. So with that, we are coming out of closed session, and we are going to, Tom Thompson is going to give us information on an item discussed during closed session. Tom?
Yeah, I need to make a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute all documents necessary to allow for the sale of 324 acres of the Ford Ranch, marketed as the Ford Ranch Farm, for no less than $450,000.
Okay, with that, do I have a second?
A second.
A second by Lane Carter. With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in favor, if you would say aye.
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 With no opposing, motion passes 7-0. That is the only announcement to be made out of executive session. So we will now move on to announcements and consideration of future agenda items. Are there any? With none, I will ask for a motion for adjournment. May I have?
Mayor Tommy
By
Hebert,
Tommy.
Single Member District 1, move we adjourn.
I'll second.
And a second by Lane, Lucy, and Tom. So I think that's a strong second. With that, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 With none opposed, we are adjourned with a 7-0 vote. Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for